Hi guys, I saw this guy's video. It's a Marine reacts to practical shooting fails, and it should be fun. I like this guy's videos, but he obviously doesn't know much about practical shooting, so he puts in a few words here and there that are real misconception. I just wanted to bring light to each of the scenarios and what a practical shooter would say about them. And this is meant to be, the original video is meant to be a fun video, but also instructive in that showing you people's mistakes.
We should name this the fat guy, the dumb guy, and the guy who can't keep his finger off the trigger. Let's take a look at these idiots. Let's go. So these are supposed to be the best of the best, right? Well trained, good to go, understand firearm safety, and how to hit a target. Let's see.
So I just want to react to that. There's a big misconception that just because you do competition shooting and you're a competition shooter that you're actually very good. And it's not that he's correct in that competition shooting is laughable or something like that. It's just that it's just like any other sport. You'll start with zero skills and then you'll build up. The average video here, you're going to see relatively good shooters making mistakes, and that's just the way that it is, as in we need to learn from those mistakes. There's no real big bravado, best of the best, or elite sort of thing. They're not LARPing as LE or anything like that. They're participating in the sport. So Marines are trained in sort of close quarters combat as well, but the commentary from just a Marine without any extra training commenting on judo would be probably just as uninformative. Let's take a look at what he says here.
So far, the fat guy, the dumb guy, finger discipline. Yeah, I did. Wow.
Yeah, there's no explanation for that one. That's just putting a finger on the trigger.
Okay, so being a dumbass with a gun, there's no sexism apparently, because the woman did it and the guy did it. Both of them can't keep their finger off the trigger. Now, granted, these triggers are light in these competition 1911s, but this is ridiculous. And I think the question is, what's more dangerous, being in front of the target or being the judge?
No doubt about being in front of the target's more dangerous. So I don't know what he means by that. So she wasn't shooting a 1911. It's going to be like a Glock style weapon. If it was a 1911 style gun, it would have the safety on, and what she did wouldn't have occurred. So what she did, and the reason she put the video up, was to show other people her mistake and how other people can learn from it and how she learned from it. And the main thing is that loaded guns on tables, starting like that, start condition, is relatively dangerous. So what you're meant to do, imagine this is in the box and you're going to grab it. You go in, you go with nice trigger discipline. You go three fingers down here, one finger on the frame, and you're good to go, right? But if you're coming in fast and then you just go like this, boom, you've hit the trigger. Now you're trying to do the same thing. You're just off by just the smallest amount, and you're in the wrong part. I don't like table starts. It's also possible that if you come in, don't grab it properly, you end up spinning the gun around, have it pointing at you. I think table starts are dangerous, and that's kind of what she's pointing out, that there is a danger. And from this video on, she said she's going to load, but not for round in the chamber as instructed. You're allowed to do that. And that's how she's going to. She's going to take the extra time and rack it.
Come on, man. They don't even know they're doing it, right? So they could be flipping the weapon behind you as the judge, hitting the guy watching. I mean, all this is funny, but it's hard to watch someone that irresponsible. If I ever made a mistake like that, no. I don't put my finger on the trigger unless I want to go bang.
So the first thing you pointed out was like with the direction of the gun. And that's good, because that is like 1 and 2, like finger off the trigger until you're ready to shoot, point the gun in the safe direction. Now in those cases, the gun was actually in a safe direction. And that's one of the key things, is that if you're ever caught in one of these practical shooting sports with your finger in the trigger guard when it wasn't supposed to be, i.e. when you're moving and not shooting, or you ever point the gun in a direction beyond parallel to the berm at any point. Like you just reload, just slightly point it in slightly wrong direction. If you, it doesn't matter if it's unloaded, that's a DQ. You're going home for the day. So these sports take this very seriously. Implying any otherwise is a little bit funky. I mean, you'll see all sorts of stuff just at the normal pistol ranges. You know, you'll have people in the bay point the gun, you know, sideways while loading, and they're flagging all sorts of people. I think in all of this video, you only see one person flag another person, thankfully.
Whoa, buddy.
Whether it's in this position.
So I'm pretty sure he didn't even see what happened. It happened so quick. There was actually an ND on reload. So it is true. There are shooters out there that have this sort of sympathetic response, and they end up inside the trigger guard. You got to keep it really nice and high up on the slide. Practice, practice, practice. You know, got to let it dry fire in.
Or whether I'm pressing.
That's always classic, right? You guys see the thing on YouTube about the gamer who was playing with his Glock, talking smack at it discharged. So these negligent discharges, not only are they just stupid because it doesn't go bang unless you put your finger on the trigger, and there's a wet around it, right? So you assume there's always a round in it. Don't put your finger on it. This guy's showing somebody. He's the expert, right? And he can't seem to figure it out.
Well, blame the original video editor there. I mean, that wasn't actually practical shooting sports, but what was funny to see there was that the AK was unsafe. It's not an excuse to pull the trigger unless you know it's clear, but it was kind of interesting. Obviously, a malfunction also happened. Thankfully, it was in a safe direction.
No boy.
Oh! No!
So that was
I
obviously.
don't even know what that was. He's inserting a magazine into the weapon. Usually pull a charging handle back, an AR platform, puts a round in the chamber. I don't know how you do that. These weapons aren't like crappy made weapons. Crappy made operators. You guys ever seen that at the range? Put that one in the comments.
Crappy operators. Well, it's just practical shooting. But anyway, yeah, I don't know what that guy was doing. It said unloading, so it's not loading. So I'm not exactly sure what was happening there. But clearly, magazine out, pull the trigger with a round in. I think the next video here is that exactly again. But I think this one was actually an instructional video showing the kinds of mistakes that could occur. This is a canned video, I'm pretty sure.
Range idiots, we'll call them. I don't know how you're surprised about that. Like, that's a shocker. You know, like, you obviously have no trigger discipline, period. These guys are scary. If I saw someone like this at the range, I'm taking off. What are you guys doing? Put that one in the comments.
So that was clearly a canned video, but it was highlighting that when you're doing the unload, take the magazine out, rack it, you really need to check, because what happened there, or what it was simulating, or perhaps they did, was they had a gun where the ejector wasn't working. Maybe the extractor works, or maybe the extractor is broken. It just meant that the round was still in the chamber despite charging the handle. And as an extra layer of safety in practical shooting sports, I don't recommend this during your normal administrative handling unless you're at the range. After they've verified the chamber is clear, they fire the weapon, making sure that even if you had, you know, a brain fart, you're not walking off the range with a gun with a loaded chamber. So that's why he pulled the trigger. It wasn't poor trigger discipline. That was the unloading procedure. They were just highlighting that you do need to visually check that chamber despite going through the motions that should have unloaded it.
Whoa! Stop! Stop! Stop!
Stop.
Whoa!
So I'm very certain the Marine here doesn't actually understand why that was an issue. So on a practical shooting range, if you see in this video here, moving up range, this is where people are going to be. That's not the berm. So you want to point the gun in the direction of the berm, and the amount of leeway you've got is 90 degrees in each direction, because you know, safety officers are meant to be behind you, and 9 degrees in each direction will also still be berms on a 3D range, on a typical practical shooting sports range. And when he went to point the gun down, I think this Marine probably thinks that's acceptable, but in the practical shooting sports, pointing it near the ground like that does break the 180, and that's a DQ. You go home for the day.
Уважаемый судья, ну, я провел стволом по вам.
Yeah, you're not going to live long as a judge if you're standing in front of a piece of plastic supposed to be a target. Well, these idiots, sounds like they were Russian. I don't care if they're Russian, American, or Yugoslavian. I'm dating myself here. Dangerous is dangerous, right?
Yeah, I fully agree with that. The safety officer wound up in a position that that they were going to get swept. I think the shooter should have had a little bit more wherewithal to understand like that's where the range officer was going to be and just stop the run. He didn't need to sweep the range officer like that.
Whoa. I mean, what do you do with a guy like that? You know, you can see this happening in a combat situation by mistake, right? These guys are trained up. They're not doing it. Not flagging a guy, flagging a guy like this idiot. And the way their trigger discipline is, I'm surprised this guy didn't catch one in the head.
Well, I mean, he was close, but shooter stopped his run. Range officer took remedial action. I'm not saying it's the best situation to be in. It's like avoid that, stay behind, predict where your shooter's going to be if you're the range officer. But it's funny, but I don't know how much heat was really needed on that one.
Oh boy, hold your guns right.
Stop.
Come on. You know, you get these tactical retards running around. You know, first thing I tell people when they get into tactical stuff is get in shape first. First thing with tactics is you gotta be able to run somewhere. Then put the gun on, put all the gear on. But when you got a boiler like that, you probably can't even get the weapon in the holster properly. I'm not trying to...
Okay, so the idea that these people are LARPing or something like that it just couldn't be any further from the truth. I mean, have you ever seen any combat gear that has 170 millimeter mags shooting 38 Super in a race holster with a $7,000 gun? This isn't what these people are doing. Think of it more like judo. It's a very humbling sport. He's just pissed off that he forgot to put the retention on his holster and his gun fell off. He's now DQ'd. He's now going home for the day.
Trying to be mean, but let's be realistic here.
He is fat though. My wife and I call this shooter body. You just don't need that much physical prowess to engage in the shooting sports, it seems.
Whoa! I just don't know how that happens. Can weapons misfire? Yes. Have I ever seen it happen? No. I've seen some old AKs, all right? If you dropped them hard enough and rounds in the chamber, they would go bang. That is it. 35 years of gun ownership, using guns, military, after the fact. I've just never seen something this irresponsible. Have you guys? Put in the comments if you have, and what did you make it out alive?
So, obviously this is just a compilation. That person, again, they're not LARPing. They shared their video. They showed what happened to them. They showed what went wrong. Now, I know that video. That gun actually did malfunction. Finger was outside the trigger guard and racked it, bang, it slam fired basically. The range officer saw it, showed everyone. That's why we have the other rules, make sure it's pointed to a safe direction at all times, and nobody was hurt. I mean, it can happen, and that's why it's important to make sure all of the safety rules are working in your favor all the time.
Come on, man. Whoa. Mackerel. No, think think about it, so you have this berm, right? This guy can't reloads, obviously pulls the trigger, the round going over a berm, X amount of miles.
So I just want to call on that one. It kind of looks to me like his finger was outside the trigger guard, and slamming the mag in actually caused the hammer to drop. Would it have been more ideal if the the gun was pointed at the berm and not in the air? Yeah, it would have been more ideal. But we are dealing with what I think is another malfunction.
The direction to land someone's house. I mean, take aside the danger if you're at the range. Think about if you're down the road and this guy's bracking them off like that. I mean, come on. I bet. Come on, man. Hey. You know, so they're running with the firearm, which you don't want to do, but I get competition, practice up, bravo. Then you fall, hopefully their fingers on the trigger at the same time. You know, a lot of times between targets, military, you'll put it on safe just as a precaution, get in the habit. Now, I don't know what it's like in this type of training. Fortunately, we haven't seen any negligent discharges in this one yet.
So yeah, exactly. That's what gun safety is all about. And you'll see when people fall in practical shooting, they're actually trying to maintain the gun beyond all else. I've seen quite a few people fall while doing practical shooting, and I've only seen one DQ out of 4 falls, and that's because while they were falling, they were able to maintain their trigger discipline. They're able to keep the gun pointed in a safe direction. They protected themselves and everyone around them by focusing on the gun and not just going willy-nilly and, you know, doing whatever makes you feel good while falling down, I guess.
Oh, my Lord.
Oh.
Tell you what, man, these guys are something else. Jesus.
So is he going to say that no military person has ever fallen down with their gun? I mean, I don't really understand. This is just humorous. Watching people fall down is humorous, but criticizing them for falling down is, I don't know, it seems a bit weird.
What is she doing? I've never seen someone run backwards like that with their firearm face backwards, running kind of like that. Have you guys seen that? Maybe that's such a high-tech level of training, I don't get it. If you've seen it, put it in the comments. Never seen it, looks terrible.
So clearly he's unaware that this person is actually doing the very best they can do to keep that gun safe. So she's keeping the gun pointed directly downrange while she needs to move in the other direction. And it's better that she faces where she's going, because look at all that snow and ice. Like she clearly needs her eyes to be where they need to be, but the gun doesn't need to be pointed near anybody. So it doesn't need to be pointed at the ground, sweeping left or right or anything like that. Just keep it pointed downrange and go.
Yeah, no kidding. Oh, gee. He's trying to become YouTube famous. His wife's filming him. He doesn't realize she's behind him. Cracks her in the mouth or in the camera with the butt of his M4. Holy God. Point of view disaster. Look at this thing. Come on.
So that was actually a good example of how to take a fall with a gun. So he kept the gun off the ground, finger off the trigger, keep it pointed in a safe direction. Falling's going to happen. You need to know how to do it with as much safety as possible.
You wonder why a good old dad gets hurt playing flag football, going to the gun range. You know, they set it up. They're already out of shape. And then they're going to sprint with a firearm in their hand. Loaded gun, right? That makes sense in what plan, I don't know. Again, get in shape first, then run around in circles with your firearm.
So everyone should get in shape. Fine, fair. But I don't think getting in shape would have prevented his shoes from slipping on the wood. Wood planks, platforms, they always prevent a slipping hazard. I'm extra cautious on it. He was not cautious enough. It happened, but he kept his gun pointing in a safe direction and finger off the trigger. That's gun safety is paramount. Even when you're falling down, even when brass is falling down into your shirt or something like that, always focus on gun safety.
Oh, what's that?
Okay, so I'm not going to get him go through. He talks a whole lot about tannerite here. This is not tannerite. This appears to be some sort of ammo dump or something like that. It takes many, many seconds for even the shockwave and explosion to hit. So anyway, I hope you learned a little bit about the shooting sports. There is a paramount on gun safety. No, people aren't LARPing. They don't want to be military or LE. These guys in general shoot many, many orders of magnitude more rounds than military LE. The reason you're seeing this is a compilation of all of the DQ videos found on YouTube over the course of the year, and people are sharing them to show people what can happen when you make mistakes and how to be better from it. And in most videos here, we're seeing people doing the right thing, especially on the falling one, trying to be better there, especially on that one of the rifle where the ejector's not working. It shows people exactly what can happen there. Even the lady who did the loaded table starts, you have to be very, very cautious. If I'm not super competitive or something like that, I will absolutely not do a loaded table start. I'll do what she does with the chamber off, or I have a gun that has a safety, hopefully. So anyway, that's that. I hope you enjoyed it. I didn't enjoy it watching it initially for myself the first time, but we'll see. All right, until next time, see you around.